Today I'll show you how I take my bass from sounding like this to this. I'll be mixing the bass for the song I wrote for this video. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click in the upper right corner to go to that video. So let's disable the processing on all of the tracks and walk through how I mix each track one by one. Small disclaimer, of course this is only how I mix my stuff. Of course there are a million ways to mix, and no way is necessarily better than the other. If it sounds good, it doesn't matter how you got there. But okay, let's start. If you've seen my drum mixing video, I'm doing kinda the same approach here as I did with the snare, where each track serves a different purpose. So I have the raw DI track here, which is then sent to 3 different tracks. This actually comes from Submission Audio's Djinnbass, which is a really good virtual instrument. But okay, let's start with the bass sub track. As the name implies, this is where the sub of the bass comes. So this is basically just a aggressively low passed and compressed track. So let's start with the EQ. Low pass at around 200 Hz and then a small high pass to just eliminate the really low frequencies. Small boost to the low frequencies and also a small cut to the low mids here. And then starts the chain of compressors. So attack at around a medium speed, 4:1 ratio and fast release, aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction. And then I have another compressor here, again aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction. And then I have a multi-band compressor here, just completely eliminating anything over 1 kHz. And then I have 3 bands here, one from 0 to 50 Hz, another from 50 to 100, and then another from 100 to 1 kHz. And then I have another EQ. So since we're compressing it so much, some of the frequencies that we eliminated earlier tends to creep back up. So this EQ is basically just here to really keep those frequencies out that we don't want. So there's a band pass here, with the low pass being at 200 Hz. And then we have some minor console saturation, because I like it. And then we have a limiter further pushing down the dynamic range of the track. And this track then sounds like this. By the way, if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. So let's go over to the bass grit track. This is the bass guitar content that I want actually poking out of the mix a bit. So this is what the listener will actually identify as being like the top end clang of the bass. So let's go through the plugins I have here. First I have an EQ, band passing fairly heavily, boosting some mids, as well as cutting out some low mids and also cutting out some high mids and some highs. This then goes into neural DSP Parallax with fairly low gain settings. And this then goes into a bunch of compressors, again around the medium attack speed, fast release, aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction. And same thing here, aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction. And I also have a multi-band compressor here. And then again we have an EQ, fairly heavily high passed, since the bass sub track takes care of all the sub contents of the bass. Also cutting some mids and boosting some highs here. And then we have a small boost to the high end of the bass. And we also have a limiter at the end to push down the dynamic range of this track. So this track sounds like this. So let's go over to the bass diss track. So the purpose of this track is that this track will serve to beef up the guitar, essentially. So a casual listener might actually not identify this track as being part of the bass. If I succeed in what I want to do, this will make the guitar sound really beefy. So let's go over the plugins that are here, starting with an EQ. Again, fairly typical band pass here, cutting some lows, cutting some low mids, boosting some mids, also cutting some of the high mids and the highs. And this is to shape the track before it goes into this guitar amp here. So I actually use the same guitar amp here that I use for my rhythm guitars, which kind of helps this illusion of blending the bass guitar and the rhythm guitar together. So for the amp, most of the settings are around noon, with a bit of an emphasis on the mids and the presence. I also have the graphical EQ enabled here, which almost serves as a kind of band pass here, as well as some minor tweaks to the frequency bands. And the cab section is essentially what I use for my rhythm guitars as well. And this then goes into another EQ, which does a fairly aggressive high pass, also cutting some low mids, boosting some of the mids, and also cutting some of the high mids, but also boosting some of the highs. And then we go into the compressor here, again aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction, and another compressor here, aiming for another 3 decibels of gain reduction. We also have a multiband compressor here as well. And then another EQ, just to again eliminate some of the frequencies that we don't want, as well as making some minor tweaks to the different frequency bands. We have a small boost to the highs here, and again a limiter. So this is what this track sounds like. And this is what all the bass tracks sound like combined. And this is what it sounds like in the mix. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, there might be another video on the screen that might also be in your interest. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.